When we save the dollars on our 401ks and our IRAs, we didn't realize that our subsequent beneficiaries, our kids, were going to have to take this money out over 10 years. It creates a tremendous problem for them in their own planning because we're going to be dumping this money into them over the 10 years.
And welcome into Financial Focus, brought to you by the best of the best in financial services. 10 straight years concurrent and running. The team from GulfCoast Financial Services is named by the readers of the Lake City Reporter that best of the best title in financial services. And of course, led by founder and CEO John Kuykendall here with us as always. And we appreciate the time, the insight, a common sense approach to planning for your financial investment and retirement future. And when it comes to what we are paying attention to about our money, about our finances, John, I think there's one big issue on the minds of the American public right now, particularly savers and investors, and that is the upcoming election and how that plays into our pockets and wallet.
Well, Peter, you're right. I think a lot of people are concerned about how the market's going to react during the election, and it's almost the same thing as if we had gun control. People are afraid, wanting to get out of the market, wanting to go to cash during this time. But Peter, as well as I do, that historically the market hasn't really reacted that differently to elections. And so the average overall is about 7%, and first-term presidents are about 12%, believe it or not. So I'm concerned about what happens, but I'm more concerned about the outcome of the election than I am what the market's going to do.
Yeah. And maybe not even just this election, right? I know it's a big one, but the elections for the next 25 or 30 years are going to span the course of most people's retirement timeline,
Yeah.
right? Or at least what's going to happen with our money thereafter. And so we've really got to look at the sort of continued direction that things are going and wonder what kind of policy in Washington is going to impact our finances and our planning and our money. And John, we've got 4 particular risks that we are going to talk over on the program. But to your point, looking at how the market reacts to presidential elections, it seems to, and I don't know if this is the chicken or the egg scenario, but rather than who is in charge at the moment or during a particular term, the market seems much more reflective of the current person's approval ratings, right? So if there's good approval ratings of the president, the market seems to be doing very well. And vice versa, if there's low approval ratings, then the market doesn't seem to be doing very well. Or, John, is it reversed that the president doesn't seem to be doing very well when the market is suffering? What do you think came first, the chicken or the egg there?
Well, I think actually the middle of the road ratings, not over 50%, but between that 30 to 50% range, gives us the most return historically, which was kind of amazing when I read that. And the over 50% actually makes less than that middle of the road rating. So, I think it has something to do with it, because if we're happy with the president, then we're happy with the economy. We're happy with where we are on interest rates. We're happy with what we can afford to purchase. Inflation's moderate. So those things all play into go with the rating of the president. And so I think we're happier when nothing's changing in that he's in that 30 to 50% range. Life's good, Peter.
Yeah.
So we should be happy then. But, as we talk about these risks, we have to look at tax risk because that's very important to us. It is projected that in 2044, the revenue coming in to the country will be the amount of debt coverage it takes to do Medicare, Social Security, and social programs and the debt service will exceed the revenue coming in. And so that's just an indication, Peter, what we said all along, that tax rates have to go up. But it's a question of who's going to be taxed.
Yep.
And, you know, everybody wants
If you
somebody
have
else.
any money, it's going to be you, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you got any money at all, it's going to be you. We can't say that we're just going to tax the super rich and they're going to pay the bill. They're already paying 80% of the bill. I mean, we can't expect them to pay 100% of all the debt coverage. So America wasn't built that way. It was built on capitalism. And I think we need to get back to that mindset. We can never be a socialistic country.
Retirement is full of risks regardless, right? The
Yeah.
unpredictable stock market, the fluctuating interest rates, inflation, healthcare, potentially outliving your income. But there are a couple concrete risks that a lot of Americans have not addressed, have not specifically identified in part of their planning, even though they will thoroughly impact retirement. Those risks have the potential to reduce the amount of income that retirees can spend in retirement. And John, you hit on those: tax risk and legislative risk. These are pressing issues that savers and investors must face today. And those two risks closely intertwined, obviously, with the changes in the government and changes in who may be in charge at the moment and what kind of laws they pass, and then what kind of tax rates ensue as a result.
Well, that's right. It's the amount of money we get to keep. Taxes are already a major component of our expenses. And so, as we look at the legislative and the tax risk, we can change. We know that changing tax brackets, because we're in a progressive tax, and the more you make, the more you pay tax on, that changing tax brackets by lowering the amount will cause us to pay more, taxes. Also, upping the income tax brackets so that we pay more for those brackets as we go along. So, changing the tax brackets is certainly something that is kind of a concern to us. And we know that in 2025, we're going to see some changes to the tax brackets, the whole tax system, because we have that sunset of the existing bill. So certainly changing tax brackets is a problem. Limiting tax deductions, we saw that in the 2017 tax bill, when you were only allowed to write off 10%, 10,000 of your real estate taxes. And so if you had more, if your taxes were more, and places like New Jersey, a majority of the people up there pay more than $10,000 for real estate taxes, but they couldn't write it off. So that's an example of what can happen to limiting tax deductions so that we have to pay more taxes.
Well, John, I know that for years I have been hearing ongoing talk and concerns with the potential for widespread government money grabs. Let's just name it and title it like that. All the way ranging from straight wealth confiscation, austerity measures like what happened in Cyprus a decade or two ago, where the banks closed their doors, and then when they reopened them, all of the citizens had a third less money in their accounts, to more recent conversations that have heated up about capital gains, even if we have not yet sold an asset. But I feel and fear as though the real target that most Americans need to be chiefly concerned about is in those retirement accounts that have not yet even paid income tax. The government doesn't have to confiscate your 401k, bottom line. All they need to do is incrementally raise income tax rates, which we know is not only on the table, but already law on the books in a couple short years, John.
That's right, Peter. And the more they raise it, the more we're going to have to pay. We've seen things that they can do with the Secure Act, where we have, done away with the stretch IRA for subsequent beneficiaries, our kids. And we've seen them change tax rates over and over again. And so certainly the money that we've got set aside in our retirement accounts, if you've got $1 million, you really probably only have 700,000 that's your money. the other part of that money belongs to the government, and they're going to get it sooner or later. And so we need to be cognizant of that when we're doing our retirement planning and looking at how much money we need to live on. So I think that it's certainly something that we should be addressed, certainly something we should be aware of. I'm not so concerned about them going in and taking my money by force. I'm concerned about them taking it tax-wise. And suppose, Peter, that we change the Secure Act 3.0 next year that says, well, you don't have a required minimum distribution anymore. You have to take this money out over the next 10 years. And so instead of stretching it out over my life, the next 20 or 25 years, I'm going to pay taxes on it in the next 10, which is going to affect my Medicare, the amount of money that I'm taxed on Social Security. There are a lot of different things that are going to happen. And there's nothing saying they won't change that.
No, in fact, they can, and they have proven that they will change some of the rules as it relates to tax laws and specifically retirement accounts. So John, let's talk about 4 ways that legislation from Washington could potentially impact your retirement approach, and could impact your money, your wallet, your investments. And we've hit on these loosely, but let's talk about them specifically. Number 1, changing tax brackets.
Well, certainly, all we have to do is change the amount where it's taxed, and say, let's say right now it's 0 to 10, is that 10,000 is one. I can say 0 to 5 is that one, and increase the next one. So certainly, I have the ability. The government has the ability to make me pay more taxes, and at the same time, just by changing those tax brackets.
And the last time that was done was in 2017, and that one was an 8-year measure, will be expiring at the end of 2025. John, if that is to remain in force, the tax cuts that went into effect in 2017, then a new bill would have to pass the House, the Senate, and be approved by the president at some point in time. And it just does not seem like those 3 co-equal entities there are going to be able to agree on much. So it seems like we are destined to see those tax brackets revert to back what they were before 2017. Would you agree?
I would agree. And the biggest thing is that I'm going to lose the deduction, the minimum deduction that I have now. So I'm going to have to start itemizing whatever, again, and revert back to what I was doing before 2017. And so a lot more people are going to be paying taxes.
Yep.
We did a study here, and the taxes on a 2023 and a 2024 using the same income tax bracket, or 2026, it would make about $12,000 difference because of the deductions. If I didn't have the standard deduction at 30,000 for married filing jointly, seniors, and had to revert back to the old with no kids because I'm a senior, seniors are going to be hit pretty hard.
And of course, 2024, that standard deduction, married filing jointly, $29,200. If both are over the age of 65, there's a slight bump up there. You get an additional $1,550. So just above that $30,700 mark for the standard deduction. If we have to go back to itemizing and marking down our home mortgage interest and the donations that we made to our churches or to Goodwill, John, that could be significantly reduced in the deductions that most people are able to reduce from their taxable
Peter,
income.
don't forget that we're looking at retirees here on this program. My house is paid for. I don't have a large mortgage. I don't have any deductions. I don't have any interest. So I give what I can to the church, but I'm on a fixed income. So my charities aren't that large. I'm going to end up paying more taxes. It's natural.
Number 2 on the list, John, we just discussed it, limiting tax deductions. Number 3, adjusting which assets are taxed. Now, this is one that, as of late, has received a whole lot of attention and debate.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, certain assets can be taxed. One of the things we're talking about, and I think you mentioned it early, was this appreciated capital gains. Suppose I've got a stock that I've got $100,000 gain in, but I haven't sold it yet, and they declare that I have to pay the capital gains tax on that. So that's just going to bump my income. I'm going to end up in the higher tax capital gains bracket. And we know also that capital gains may go up because of the sunset. So it's certainly something that's going to affect me. Suppose that they change the amount of money that's taxed on retirement accounts. Right now, the Roths are tax-free. I feel like they're going to stay that way. I don't think we'll go back and change that law. But certainly 401ks right now are taxed a little bit differently than IRAs. There's a lot of things that they can change that would change the way the assets are taxed. But the one I'm really concerned about is the appreciating gains that we hold in our portfolios and also in our homes.
And John, Social Security, right? I mean, this is an example of them having changed and adjusted which assets are taxed and how much of them are taxed. Social Security used to be completely tax-free, but it has gone over a couple different changes where it has become more and more taxable depending on how much income an individual or a couple have.
Right. And right now the limit's 85%. There's nothing to say that if I make that same amount of money, 100% of my Social Security is subject to taxes. So, I mean, certainly, yeah, Peter, we can change the assets that are taxed and how they're taxed. And it's certainly something that we have to worry about as seniors.
And then number 4, changing how certain assets are taxed. Maybe one of the most frustrating ways that Washington can impact your retirement, changing how the assets in various retirement vehicles get taxed. And so we've got to think about the number, the amount, the dollars, the volume of dollars that are in those yet to be taxed, tax deferred retirement accounts, 401ks and IRAs. And John, when Congress makes changes to the tax code structure, it could mean that you access money and assets that you saved under a completely different set of rules than when you saved those dollars.
Well, that's right, Peter. When we save the dollars on our 401ks and our IRAs, we didn't realize that our spouse, that our subsequent beneficiaries, our kids, were going to have to take this money out over 10 years. It creates a tremendous problem for them in their own planning because we're going to be dumping this money into them over the 10 years. So, there's nothing to say right now, that the required minimum distribution is 75 for most people as we get older now, but there's nothing to say that we can't change that so that we are subject to the same 10-year rule as the subsequent beneficiaries.
How will my income be impacted if taxes are different than expected? How will most retirees' income be impacted, John, if taxes are different than what the financial world has projected out for them for this last several recent decades?
I think taxes are going to be more and more an expense. I think retirees are going to have less and less disposable income. And if you're on a fixed budget or a fixed income right now, then we're really subject to getting less. And we need to be ready for that.
Are the vehicles that Americans are using exposing them to legislative risk or protecting them from it?
Well, Peter, when we signed up for all this back in the 80s, we didn't realize that what we were doing, that we were really making the government our partners. And so they're going to get a chunk of our retirement and they're going to get more of it than we really wanted them to get. And we don't think about that. And so I think that what we've done is we've made ourselves subject to more legislative risk than less.
And then finally, John, if we plan to leave assets behind or simply don't exhaust our assets during our lifetime, which we certainly hope not to, if we do leave assets behind to heirs as a legacy, are those heirs and those dollars protected from legislative change that could reduce the amount of legacy and the impact that we leave behind, or exposed to it?
Well, certainly it's less, Peter, because what we're going to be doing is subject them to more taxes and probably putting them in a situation that we really didn't want to do when we were trying to leave a legacy for them. But don't forget, Peter, the two things we haven't talked about is that Social Security is projected to only have 72 cents on the dollar in 2033. And Medicare runs out like in 2034, 2035. So, we're going to see changes to Social Security and Medicare. And I say again, I believe that Social Security and Medicare is going to be indexed for income. The more you make, the less your benefit you're going to have. And so we need to be aware of that and be planning for that, because it's going to happen to us.
The picture that we envision of the retirement landscape could significantly change in numerous ways, but specifically what goes on in Washington could be a large part of how that continuing picture gets painted and what changes about it. Legislative risk, tax risk, these are just two of the factors that you have to factor into your planning. And John, we know what the laws are on these things today, and we can plan proactively. That is a big part of the financially focused written retirement income plan.
Well, that's right, Peter. What we try to do when we put that plan together is project your taxes, figure out how we can help you do the Roth conversions, how much it's going to cost, sit down and go over the plan, and then continue to plan. And as we know things are coming out and we get direction from Washington, then we will put those in the plan and rework the plan for you so that you understand how you're going to be impacted. It's certainly something that everyone needs. That financially focused income plan is certainly something that everybody needs. We can't go down the road unless we got the GPS.
Always a pleasure speaking with John Kuykendall from GulfCoast Financial Services. If you would like to talk and discuss and review how legislative risk could impact your retirement outlook, your vision of retirement, your investments in those retirement accounts, the impact to your income and spendable money, and the legacy that you leave behind, all part of that financially focused written retirement income planning process. And John and the team there at GulfCoast Financial Services are there to assist in either reviewing the current situation or structuring and putting a plan together. All you have to do is pick up the phone and give them a call, 386-755-9018, 386-755-9018. It is the billboard part of the program. So if you need any assistance in planning, or even if you've already got some accounts set up but are concerned with this legislative risk, you've got a resource. Give GulfCoast Financial Services a call, 386-755-9018, 386-755-9018. And of course, when you come in, you can pick up a copy of John's two books, the original Financial Focus, as well as the newest, which is Quitting is for Winners, but Retirement is Not for Wimps. And John, I think the course of discussion today proves why that is.
Oh, Peter, it's difficult being retired, being on a fixed income, and everybody needs to be ready for that. And so let's get those income plans done.
That financially focused written retirement income plan. Again, if you'd like to review your current plan, your picture, how you are set up for your financial future, and identify and address risks that could derail you from your goals, that is the process of the financially focused written retirement income plan. And all you need to do is call 386-755-9018. 386-755-9018, or get the conversation started and download some fantastic free resources at the website, GulfCoastFinancial.net, GulfCoastFinancial.net. John, once again, always appreciate the time.
Thanks, Peter. Great to be here. See you next week.
Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and tune in for more financial focus by visiting GulfCoastFinancial.net. The The information presented on this program is provided for informational purposes only, without warranty of accuracy, completeness, or suitability for a particular purpose. This program is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. This information is general in nature and not specific enough to be construed as advice. You should not make any decision based on the information presented on this program without independent consultation with an appropriately licensed professional or competent advisor. Investment in securities or the market involves a potential risk for loss of principal. Trading, therefore, may not be suitable for all listeners. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs. Early withdrawals may subject the owner to penalties, fees, or taxes. John Kuykendall is registered with and securities are offered through Kovac Securities Inc., member FINRA SIPC, found online at www.kovacsecurities.com. Advisory services are offered through GulfCoast Financial Services Inc., a registered investment advisor in Florida. GulfCoast Financial Services Inc. is not affiliated with Kovac Securities Inc. or Kovac Advisors Inc. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All investing involves risk. Investment decisions should be based on your own goals, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Due to various factors including changing market conditions and/or applicable laws, the content may no longer be reflective of current opinions or positions.